In 1903, the province of Bengal was a geographic giant. It stretched across modern-day West Bengal, Bangladesh, Bihar, Odisha, and Assam, holding a population of 80 million people. It was also the engine room of Indian resistance against British rule. The British government claimed the province was simply too massive to manage. They argued that rural areas were suffering from neglect and required a complete bureaucratic overhaul to be administered properly. But Viceroy Lord Curzon had a different motive. He saw Bengal's dense, politically active population as a direct threat. His plan to partition the province was a deliberate political maneuver meant to break the back of the nationalist movement by dividing the population along strict linguistic and religious lines. The empire realized that a united Bengal could eventually dismantle their rule over India. To secure their survival, they weaponized the map. Curzon's strategy was straightforward: slice the province down the middle to permanently dilute the political power of the Bengali people. This chart shows how the demographic engineering of the new West Bengal territory worked. While it maintained a Hindi majority, the newly drawn borders intentionally grouped Bengali speakers with Hindi and Oriya speakers. The Bengali population immediately became a linguistic minority in their own territory. Over in the eastern half, the strategy shifted. The new Eastern Bengal and Assam territory was drawn to manufacture a Muslim majority. To secure their loyalty, the British promised to build a magnificent new capital in Dhaka, explicitly designing the geography to pit Hindus and Muslims against one another. Curzon made the proposal public in December 1903, and the British government formally announced the borders would take effect on October 16, 1905. Curzon believed this single line of ink would cleanly decapitate the Indian resistance. Instead, it triggered a mass explosion of public defiance. For years, Indian political leaders had relied on polite resistance. They held meetings, published memos in newspapers, and submitted formal petitions to the British authorities. When the borders actually changed, those constitutional methods evaporated. October 16, 1905 became a day of active mourning. Millions of people abandoned political halls for the streets. They fasted and marched barefoot in massive processions to bathe in the Ganges River. In direct defiance of the new borders, crowds tied rakhis, simple thread bracelets, around each other's wrists, creating a visible, physical network of undivided Bengali unity. The British government's refusal to acknowledge these formal petitions signaled that the era of polite diplomacy had reached its limit, leaving mass disruption as the primary path forward. This realization launched the Swadeshi Movement. Swadeshi translates directly to self-reliance, and it formed the core of an aggressive two-pronged strategy. The first prong was boycott. Citizens staged public bonfires of imported British cloth, picketed shops selling foreign goods, and rejected the system entirely by resigning from government jobs and schools. The second prong was building a replacement economy. Indians opened their own national schools, launched indigenous soap factories, and built local textile mills to completely sever their reliance on British imports. Activists were now aiming directly at the profit margins of British trade, hitting the empire where it was most financially vulnerable. In his attempt to divide a political voting bloc, Lord Curzon accidentally built a self-sustaining parallel economy. The British Empire recognized the economic danger and deployed a calculated carrot-and-stick strategy to exploit the growing pressure within the Indian National Congress. They applied the stick first. The government launched violent police crackdowns and systematically arrested the movement's more radical figures, the extremist leaders, who were demanding a full, nationwide revolution. Simultaneously, they offered the carrot. British officials introduced minor political concessions aimed at pacifying the moderate politicians and winning over the Muslim population. The tactic worked. In 1907, during a session in Surat, the Congress Party formally split. The moderates demanded the protests stay within strictly legal bounds, while the extremists insisted on escalating the boycott. Broken by external force and internal ideology, the unified front collapsed. Curzon's goal of division had finally materialized within the very group fighting to stop it. By 1908, heavy government crackdowns had shattered the movement's organizational structure. With key leaders either locked in prison or retired from public life, the momentum slowed. The campaign also suffered a critical internal failure. Its organizers relied heavily on Hindu religious symbolism to rally the crowds, a choice that largely alienated the Muslim majority and the rural peasantry from participating. But even as the protests finally subsided, the era of polite, constitutional begging in India was permanently dead. The resistance of 1905 established a tactical precedent, pairing mass mobilization with economic boycott, that would resurface in nearly every major anti-colonial campaign for the next 40 years.